Realistic training is the key to successful armed forces. This is your classroom. Camp Gagetown.
Today, with more than 1,100 square kilometers, Camp Gagetown has one of the largest and finest training areas in the entire Commonwealth. Camp Gagetown is a valuable asset. As such, it needs care to ensure it remains available for future training use. Section 9 of the Range Standing Orders deals with the Manoeuvre damage control policies, which are enforced throughout the training area. Manoeuvre damage control includes education, prevention, reporting, repairing, and tracking. Units will deploy Manoeuvre damage control teams. These teams will work hand in hand with range control in reporting and repairing damage found in the assigned training areas.
Good land stewardship practices, on the other hand, can actually maximize training and give a tactical advantage in the field. When concealment is the goal, for example, the presence of trash, disturbed wildlife, or the marks of off-road vehicle movement can reveal troop activity. Federal legislation and various provincial legislation designed to protect natural resources and the environment apply to all personnel at Camp Gagetown. The law holds each individual personally responsible and liable for any damage to the environment that may occur in the course of his or her work. Many of our projects and activities have the potential to affect the environment. Therefore, an environmental assessment, or EA, is an important part of their planning process. An EA involves an examination of what will occur during the project or activity, what the likely environmental effects will be, and what steps should be taken to minimize these effects. In addition, the sustainable development and use of our land resources is an official policy of the Department of National Defense, stated in its Sustainable Development Strategy, SDS 2000. In SDS 2000, DND commits to minimize pollution and other human impacts on the environment and to safeguard the health of our ecosystems by protecting rare and endangered species, wetlands and habitats, and by controlling pests without harming other species. DND is strongly committed to combining safe, realistic military training with responsible environmental stewardship in our training areas.
Manoeuvre damage awareness and protection is the responsibility of all who work or train at Gagetown, including civilian employees, regular and reserve forces, and also visiting troops.
The long-term benefits of sustainability are clear. To preserve the Camp Gagetown environment is to preserve our effective training area for the future. Camp Gagetown is a valuable military resource, in part for the variety of terrain it offers for realistic training. There are open stretches with scattered wood, ideal for armored and infantry tactics. There are thick woods and swamps, some of which adequately simulate jungle conditions. And there are the Nerepus Hills for mountain warfare training. Forest fire prevention is an ongoing concern, especially in the live firing areas. Watchtowers are manned for early detection of fire, and the Forest Fire Index reported hourly. Forest fires should be reported to range control immediately. To further limit the risk of wildfires, old vegetation is removed with controlled burns, conducted annually in spring under strictly monitored conditions. 3 watersheds make up the Gagetown training area, with over 200 streams in the RTA and more than 600 kilometers of stream length. The area is significant as habitat and breeding grounds for fish and wildlife, including several sensitive species. Activities in the training area that affect these water resources may also affect the quality of drinking water for neighboring civilian populations. Water quality, therefore, is a top priority on the base. Hazardous materials must be handled with caution and established procedures strictly followed in the event of an accidental spill. More obvious are water quality problems caused by sedimentation, as when heavy vehicles disturb a stream bed or churn up the ground on approaches. Damage of this sort to streams can alter the living environment for the brook trout and Atlantic salmon that populate our watercourses. It can also create gullies that lead to soil erosion and destroy the natural vegetation. Certain areas on the base are particularly sensitive to damage from training activities. Wetlands are not to be traversed by any vehicles, and a minimum buffer of 30 meters of natural vegetation is to be maintained along the shorelines of water bodies and streams. Vehicle movement in these buffers is prohibited. There are numerous cemeteries at Camp Gagetown, and these are strictly off-limits. Special care should be taken when traveling on or crossing the cemetery access roads, as the public also uses these roads. Other areas may be temporarily off-limits for specific reasons, such as reforestation or safety hazards. Areas that are marked no-go by Seibert stakes are to be strictly avoided. If an accidental entry into an avoidance area does occur, stop the vehicle immediately. Dismount to assess the situation and damage. Notify range control immediately and exit the location the way you came in. In years past, the Army has changed from foot power as the primary means of transportation to the use of modern vehicles.
Maneuver damage can be particularly significant during vehicle use off-road, but the effects of tracked or heavy-wheeled vehicles can also be seen on roads, culverts, bridges, and other structures.
To reduce damage to hard surface roads and structures, use improved roads and tank trails. Enter and exit roads at existing locations. Avoid movement through ditches. Respect speed and weight limits. In dry weather, excessive speeds can cause additional problems by raising dust clouds that impair visibility, creating a safety hazard, and reducing local air quality. As the role of today's Canadian forces focuses more now on peacekeeping than on preparation for war, the use of wheeled versus tracked vehicles has increased. Heavy wheeled vehicles can actually do more harm than tracked vehicles, which flatten the terrain. Wheeled vehicles tend to displace soil, providing gullies for rainfall runoff that can cause erosion and siltation of streams, as well as creating ruts that can restrict the direction of future vehicle movements and create a marching hazard. Entering or leaving roads at inappropriate locations can result in soil erosion, sedimentation in watercourses, crushing of culverts, or the destruction of vegetation and habitat. There can also be serious damage to the land during recovery of tracked vehicles. To reduce damage from off-road vehicle use, avoid no-go areas. Use the engineered fords for stream crossings whenever possible. Use caution in cross-country movement to avoid gullies and ditches, soft ground, wetlands, and riparian areas. Avoid locked tread or neutral steer turns with tracked vehicles. Report to range control damaged areas that could represent a safety or environmental hazard, such as damaged culverts or a gully leading into a stream. Be aware that trees can be damaged by vehicle activity causing soil compaction in their root zone. The trees, shrubs, grasses, and other plants that grow naturally in the training area are important for wildlife habitat, erosion control, and maintaining the balance of the environment. Trees may be cut for military purposes, such as creating obstacles, only with the prior permission of range control. Camouflage is a key technique in the field, but the use of trees and vegetation for this purpose is strongly discouraged. In general, camouflage nets are a more sustainable choice and more effective.
Okay,
To protect water quality, vehicles should be washed only at washing stations and should not be refueled or undergo maintenance next to streams or other surface water. Petroleum, oil, and lubricants are hazardous materials that can pose a significant health risk to humans and to the environment. Camp Gagetown has established procedures for the safe handling and disposal of hazardous substances. For example, any vehicles that will remain stationary for more than 24 hours or are known leakers are required to use flexible drip pans. If vehicles are stationary for more than a week, they must be covered to restrict rainfall into the vehicle. Any accidental spills of hazardous materials are to be taken seriously. The spill must be immediately contained, cleaned up, and reported to range control or to the fire hall at 2106. What might appear to be a harmless oil spill on bare ground can leach into the earth and pollute the groundwater some distance away. Similarly, human waste must be properly disposed of in order to protect water quality and human health. Normal field sanitation will be carried out by units on tactical training if they have less than one platoon or will be in the training area for less than 24 hours. Other units, or those deploying off-base, must arrange to use field toilets and are not to dig field latrines. Wastewater generated during field exercises must be handled in accordance with existing legislation. The Fisheries Act, for example, bans the release of wastewater into a body of water where fish live or any place where it may spread to fish habitat. In general, therefore, gray water, wastewater from showers, laundry, and kitchen, is to be collected in leak-proof tanks or retaining basins for treatment before being released into the environment. Small sumps are permissible in bivouacs for limited use. Under no circumstances will dry or wet garbage be buried or left in the training area or in other areas of deployment. All solid waste will be either disposed of in bivouac dumpsters or returned to the unit lines for proper disposal. Batteries and any hazardous or contaminated materials are to be turned in at the base supply R&D for proper disposal at 1494. Communications wire or concertina wire, too, could pose a hazard to both humans and wildlife in the training area if not picked up after use. All units will keep cardboard, wood, and metal separate from their general garbage, as these are recyclable materials and are to be disposed of at the Shirley Road landfill. Waste from weapons training, such as plastic ammo containers, unfired rounds and blanks, spent shell casings, and so on, must be recovered from the field and returned to ASA. Units conducting any digging, clearing, or earth-moving related to military training should be aware that unexploded ordnance is a possibility throughout the training area. If UXO is discovered, it should be reported to range control immediately. Units should also be aware of their position in relation to avoidance areas before constructing any type of earthworks. Digging is not to take place within 30 meters of any body of water. Any exceptions to this will require approval from range control or the environment section. Excavation near the roots of trees should be avoided as well. Following training, all holes must be filled in again. Garbage, scrap, and plant material should not be used as backfill material, but may be used to protect the surface from erosion. Topsoil should be piled separately from the less fertile subsoil when the digging is conducted, so it may be replaced last to support new plant growth. The excavation site should then be mounded or graded to return it to its original slope. Restoring the excavation to its original condition is a sound tactical practice in terms of concealment of troop activity, as well as preserving the effective training environment for future use. Realistic field training is the key to a successful Army, and Camp Gagetown is one of the most effective training areas available to the Canadian Forces.
When maneuver damage is allowed to happen, it can compromise the environment, human health and safety, or the quality of military training.
Some damage will inevitably occur in the course of normal field activities, but it is the personal and legal responsibility of every individual on the base to minimize this damage. By exercising awareness of the environment at Camp Gagetown and planning for its long-term care in every aspect of our activities, this valuable training asset will serve the Army well for years to come.